All right, so I'm going to show you a little bit about how the master broken process works, Vinci. We're going to take a recent example here and just kind of like talk through how I triage this, and then maybe look at a new failure, assuming no one else has gotten to it, and triage it together, okay? So looking at old example, here's an example from Friday where there was a valid master broken. So a lot of the times there you'll see these little retry symbols on here, which means we retried a failing job because it fails for a transient or a flaky reason. Normally, so I did not do this. This is shame on me. Normally, we try to associate it, like that failure, to like an issue. So we'll add a link to an issue. I'll show you an example of that here in a second. But let's get back on track and talk about this. So in this failure, I signaled I'm looking at this because this was very different from a failure before, and the same job failed in multiple different test runs. So 18 of 20 failed for PG9, 18 of 20 failed for PG10, which is a pretty good indication that there's a real failure in here. So, so I signaled that I'm looking at it with the eyes, and then I opened it up, and I took a look at the failures in both jobs to make sure they were the same. Okay, and here there was 2 tests that failed in the PG10 one, the source graph integration when the feature is enabled, and the same source graph is how it looks when it's disabled, and PG9 also failed for the same reason. So that's a pretty clear indication that there was a problem here. The next thing that I did, and this is going to be a little bit hard to demonstrate live, but I'll do my best, is I looked at recent commits to see what pipelines were in progress and which pipelines, I'm going to try to scroll back because this was Friday. Yeah. Which pipelines were in progress and which ones were still running that failed. So at that time, I'm going to just open up the commit here. So in the notification here, there's a link to the commit, the jobs, and I opened up the commit, and I looked at the I just kind of kept this here so I knew what was the first commit that failed with a notification. So here, sometimes what happens is the first commit that fails with a notification is sometimes not the originating commit. So like, for example, if this pipeline would have finished before this one, these would still show pending. I would just kind of look to see what MRs have been added that may have touched that feature, and then create an issue. So like in this case, it was pretty clear. So I created an issue. So new issue, there was like a general thing that is populated, but what I also do is copy over like the failed examples here. So I copy those over. So, and then I also copy over the stack trace. Yeah. Which I don't get the extended stack trace, just kind of the like this one here. So I think I copied all of this and put that in the issue and then created it. I'm not going to create it for this purpose, but yeah, so I created it and then I signaled this boom. And I also communicated in the development channel that there was a broken master. So if we could scroll up, but I just sent a notification. Does
that development channel include all the developers or specific to anyone working on this particular pipeline?
It's supposed to be all the developers. Okay. Some people have muted this, so we will also communicate in backend and front end. The guidelines say, so the guidelines that we're looking at here say communicate in development backend and front end to help get around that. I've been just communicating in development because I'm trying to encourage everyone to pay attention to there, especially if they're interested in this type of issue. So we have one place to go and we don't pollute other channels' noises. So here you can see the example. There was confusion. There was communication here. I also tried to nudge a merge request along that someone was in progress on. But after you create the issue, which this was the one that was created, I tracked it down to which MR broke it. I mentioned the 2 developers who were associated with that MR, so the maintainer and the author. And then I assigned it to Dimitri here. And he came up with an MR and closed the issue, again, relatively quickly. I think probably within a few hours. So there was some discussion around this, and this issue was a little bit unique where it was really unclear why the MR pipeline passed, but it failed once it went into master. Usually what happens is there's a change that, so in my MR, there was a change that I'm missing that happened maybe in the last 100 or 200 commits that aren't in my MR that kind of coincides with the reason for a broken master. So from a triage perspective, you create the issue, you assign it to the person, and you communicate. And really, your job for that is done. For
But once
triaging
it's
as well.
resolved, do we get involved in any verifications or just wait for the next time it passes?
Once it's resolved, so like once the MR is closed, we'll normally signal with a white check mark, just like this, that like everything's good on the MR, like on the notification. But yeah, so that's triaging. That's how you triage a broken master, I'll say, when there is an issue. So we're going to look at one that is maybe more common where there's not an issue. So here, this example, you can see there's a failing master. There's multiple jobs listed here. Quarantine, so I'll just open this. Quarantine is a job that's allowed to fail. So I just ignore jobs that are allowed to fail. I just ignore. And you can see that from right here. The symbol, the icon is different. So let's go to karma, which was the failure that actually caused the broken master, and take a closer look. So here, I'm sure this is like, oh, this one is different. This was not the one I was expecting. So there's been a very flaky karma test that a front-end developer is currently looking at. So let's take this start to finish here. So I'm going to see if there's an issue on this. Actually, let's signal that I'm looking at it with my eyes. Normally, I only do the eyes if it's a likely broken master. In this case, I don't think it is, but we'll just do this for a demonstration. So I'm just going to search. I took the part of the stack trace. So like there's no convention or format or anything like that. But normally what you'll find is this part, like failing tests are listed. The specific spec would be a good thing to search for, which in this case, I think it's down at the bottom. Oh, this one is a little unique. I'm just going to search for this because it's kind of like a larger stack trace than normal. It wasn't like this specific test failed. Like there is a specific test that failed, but like sometimes it's like in my assertion failed here. This was more, the arguments were different. So if I look here, I searched related, like this one, the related issues read spec. There was 2 that came up. I'm going to take a look at both of them and see if they're similar. Something went wrong. So that one, it's the same. So this one's a different like test. You can kind of see from here that it's a different test. So let's look at the first one. This looks like the same one. So I'm going to take this issue and I'm going to do the fire engine emoji. And I'm going to share it in here. So the fire engine means it's a known issue. And that's that is how in general you'll triage. We could retry, but right now there is a product feature bug, like a product feature that is causing a problem with retrying, where jobs that are configured in a specific way, if they're retried, they will fail again instead of like for a very different reason. So we'll see if this one works. I don't think it should, but we'll see. Actually, we don't need to wait, but like I retried it, I'm going to signal that I retried, and then we'll put one in there.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's that. This one where there's 2 failures of the same job, that was because it was retried up here, and the issue that I was talking about happened. So if you see that, I think we'll probably come up with like a short-term reaction to signal this outside of this discussion. But yeah, that's 2 different types of triaging broken masters, like going through a real broken master and then going through a flaky spec.
What happens if even after you retry, the flaky spec is still again causing the master to break?
If it's still causing master to break, we just kind of accept it in most cases, that'll help drive priority to quarantine or fix a flaky spec.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that'll usually be actions that we either try to get a team to do, but if it's causing a big enough problem, we'll just quarantine it and then have the team that owns that part of the functionality
Yep.
fix
That
it
test
on
case.
their own.
Awesome. This is very helpful.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kyle. This is very
No
helpful.
problem. Cool. I'm going to stop sharing.
And I'm gonna stop recording.